As day breaks, the same question floods my mind. If I die here, will I go to heaven? God, I'd really like to know. Another day in the Nam. Sun's up. Same smells, same scenery, same haunting question. Will I make it through today, one more day in the Nam? The order is given to saddle up. The likelihood of death is just a rice paddy away, and once again the question comes. God, I'd really like to know.
On this episode, A Struggle Beyond the Decade, I will visit with veteran-ran nonprofit organization, the Titan Project. The Titan Project is a nonprofit organization that is known as a team of teams. They want to support other veterans and each other. The Titan Project organization is developed to help brothers and sisters in arms. You see, less than 1% of Americans serve in the military. However, without their support, the rest of our country would not be able to enjoy the same degree of freedom and prosperity.
I've been sitting on the charts like a beast share. My last album spent 52 weeks there. Almost finished with the second, you should be scared. Storm's coming, you should go inside and prepare. No shortcuts, it ain't no cheese there. I brought the whole city out like a street fair. Yeah, and fuck it, I'm the coldest white rapper in the game since the one with the bleach there. Yeah, they love it when I talk shit. I get around, yeah, I'm on my Tupac shit. I kinda feel it's no girl I could not get. I'm not found at the function if it's not lit. Yeah, it's Nathan that no one can tell me. I made it here dolo, nobody to help me. From the Bay to birthplace of the hyphy, so bitch come and say to my face you don't like me.
Hello.
Good morning, man.
Morning.
How you doing?
So once I was on scene, I got to meet up with Tim Sulzner.
Tim Sulzner. I am currently in the Guard. Been in the military for 25 years. Had all kinds of ranks from private to lieutenant colonel now, I guess. So lots of time in the seat, and I've seen quite a bit of struggles, I guess you could say, throughout my career in the military.
Justin, nice to meet you.
It's Rob.
Rob driving me up right here. You want me to help you out?
Rob's our logistician guy. First sergeant.
Little top right here?
Yeah, he gets it.
Top delivering the donuts and pizza.
Right.
So, you know, I would say I'm like one of the senior leaders of the Titan Project, and that's really where my passion lies, is to try to get and identify key individuals that I think not only have leadership skills, but probably need to be part of the team and feel like they're doing something. And a lot of them are retirees, right? So these guys have already spent their 20-some years in the military, but now they're enjoying life, but they're also disconnected from the current fight, and they want to be remembered, right? So along with people that are still currently serving and people that have, you know, left active duty but have no support network, they've come back to Iowa. They're here, they're in jobs, their families are connected, but they feel, you know, they don't have that VFW Legion thing we talked about. The disconnect is there. So now we're bringing all these different people together, retirees, currently serving, people that serve but don't have their unit or anybody in the state that they can go to, a battle buddy, so to speak.
This is this house right here?
Yeah,
This is the house.
2900. So Bev, you know, she's the Gold Star mom. Lost her son, Josh Davis. He's an Navy Middle Marine. 10th of May 2010 in Iraq. So she's divorced and lives here pretty much by herself. She's not, you know, a strong lady or anything. And I don't know the effects. You know, when I can't imagine losing a kid. But
I know.
I think your perspective probably changes quite a bit. So, you know, her ability or want, and that's the need to take care of her yard and stuff just wasn't.
She's important.
Yeah.
Good,
you know, years in the military, you miss everybody's birthday parties. So now I'm here and they're like, oh, you're taking off today on our birthday party?
Including your birthday, too.
Well, no, but So I cooked this. I got this ready for everybody here.
Well,
Tim, you know, our Titans project, vet supports vets, and everything is just an awesome program. So
yeah, I couldn't make it last time. I was down at Triple C, so
it
I wanted to make
doesn't
it this
matter.
time.
Everybody shows up. Everybody helps out. Everybody goes left and right. It's just.
I got out in September 2016, and I kept looking for veterans groups, you know, organizations, and I kept finding, like, you know, all vets, you know, like from
Well,
NAM.
we still got to support those guys, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like I don't. You know what I mean?
There was,
You got the veterans. You got VFW. You got
yep,
the,
and I went
Legion.
to all of them, but
I
there were
can't sit there. And,
there was a disconnect, you know, like the big gap, you know, from 40 years. There was a huge disconnect, man. I mean, they were doing stuff for veterans, but I was worried about the 22 a day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely, bro.
And I found these guys by pure luck, man. Driving down the highway, I saw one of their trucks. It said the Titan
really?
Roofing, yeah, on the back, and I'm like, who the fuck are these guys? You know?
Born small town, northeast section of the state. Enlisted in the Guard in 1998. And then commissioned in 2003, deployed to Iraq in 2004 or 5, and then deployed again to Afghanistan in 2011. I'm still in the Guard now.
Titan has three main lines of effort, which are nested and mutually supportive of one another. They all focus on enriching veteran lives and honoring service, sacrifice, and commitment. Their first main line of effort is Titan 2-6, which focuses on suicide prevention, awareness, and resiliency. They believe that strengthening the bonds between service members and those integrated supportive networks with stronger veterans, the stronger veterans and their families will be.
Lieutenant Malcolm Scott Barbar, he deployed with us in 2010 to Afghanistan, then he went back and did some contract work, and we had just selected him for command of an infantry company, and 2 days away from taking command, he took his life. Nobody saw it coming. If you go back and look at it, you probably could see some signs, but guy never asked for help. He took on more work than he could ever accomplish because we just thought that's how he could just manage it all. But at the end of the day, he couldn't, and so his call sign was Titan 2-6, and we began this Titan project using that call sign of Titan, and one of our lines of effort is called Titan 2-6, and it's all about creating these support networks and tribes and raising awareness for suicide, veteran suicide, and trying to stop and put a stop to it and prevent it and get people to talk about their problems.
Titan 2-6 provides outreach to veteran communities to build and sustain relationships in an effort to avoid future incidences of veteran suicide. Titan 2-6 is named after one of their brothers, friends, husband, son, Army officer, affectionately known as Boo Boo, or Titan 2-6. That was his call sign in Afghanistan, and during that deployment, the bonds and the relationships he created inside and outside the Iowa Army National Guard touches the lives of hundreds of soldiers and families around.
The roofing company was kind of started to help bring the team back together after we lost a close friend. We knew we had to do something, and before then we were kind of in the process of maybe starting a business as a group, and then throughout that process this happened, and we decided that we needed to take a different route with it, and that maybe it's not about necessarily the profit, it's more about bringing that group and then having our nonprofit that we support. So we don't necessarily have to go ask for funds. We can kind of support it through ourselves. And really, the roofing side of things, in our long-range plan is to have multiple types of businesses that can operate and employ veterans, but it's more about the veterans that work together within that. Because after Boo Boo committed suicide, I think, and I know that I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why, and we think we know why, but we never will really know why. And in doing that process, I read books, I went through all that stuff, and And really, I don't think it's about necessarily what they saw or what they did. It's about those connections that they lose. And so our thought process behind what we do is trying to establish those connections.
Titan 2.6 creates awareness through healthy challenges and bringing veterans together to talk to each other as a supportive network so they no longer feel alone or like they cannot fit in with the civilian life. During combat operations, military members become a band of brothers and sisters, a tribe if you will.
I work with Major Rush at the RB.
He just stopped by the office. He's got a lot of energy.
So he was my commander when I first joined.
Yeah.
And he hasn't changed. So, 14 years later, the guy's still the same.
Oh, that's great. So the Army hasn't worn down. That's awesome.
Like, I don't know. I think he's like a time bomb. He'll keep ticking until like the day he keels over, I think. And,
probably.
And we'll find him somewhere with the can of Copenhagen in case he's coughing in the other hand, and he'll be there.
This has been a two-part project because it was so extensive. So we kind of just put out feelers, and then we have a Titan following on it, so we text out and friends of friends and veterans. This is kind of how the Titan project continues to grow, is more word of mouth. And then when people come to an event and they sense how the camaraderie and bonding with other veterans, talking about things, like how they've been treated at the VA, or where to go for help, or what's working for them as they reintegrate and fit back into society, right? So it's pretty crazy because we don't ever see the same people over and over and over again, but we continue to grow, if that makes sense. So, the intent behind the Titan project here is to help veterans, to help connect veterans in Iowa, and to put things back into the communities in Iowa, and give these veterans positive outlets to share whatever, cry, hug, get angry, other than self-medicating. We're trying to create an environment where it produces good chemicals, and they crave it and come back and they tell other people about it, and then they build these tribes, I call them. That's like our hashtag motto, is building the tribe.
And I think it's close to 30,000 soldiers just from the Iowa Guard that deployed, and that's not talking the reserves or the Air Guard, the Air Force. It's, you could just relate this back to the Civil War. And Governor Branstad used to talk about this, but he's like, okay, so in 1862 or whatever, the Civil War, like, Iowa was a pretty young state. Per capita, Iowa had the most volunteers of any other state in the Union. 7 out of 10 males volunteered for the Civil War. It's in the core. It's who we are in Iowa. And you'll see this too. I've been to basic training, Ranger School. You go to SLCs or NCOS, and honor grads from Iowa. They're always talking about these Iowa boys or Iowa girls and how they are. Well, it's our core values here in Iowa, right? Mm-hmm. Which again, then I think that's part of the problem. We come from this culture where we don't ask for a lot of help here, right?
Yes.
Which creates its own problems, and we're trying to get to that. And Mike talked a little bit about it, but we're trying to make these small groups, and you and I have talked about it. We get these small groups of veterans around the state of Iowa in each one of these communities, to realize that there's other veterans out there struggling from the same things that they could be in the same restaurant with and have no idea, right? But when they sit down and make a fishing rod or go fishing or meet for a backyard cleanup or see that we're doing a free roof for a veteran, they're like, man, who are these dudes? Then they seek us out. Fermin is one of them. He's from Kellogg, and he's going to Drake Law School, and been to Iraq several times and lived in Iowa for years and couldn't find the organization he fit in with. Now he's doing flyers and brochures and doing video and drone footage for us, and can't get enough, right? But this is, and he feels like he's found his tribe, man. And that's what we want. We want everybody to have their tribe.
Yeah, explain that a little bit. Where'd that come from?
I mean, you kind of get it as a combat veteran. It really is a tribe. Your team, your squad, your platoon, you're together like a tribe because that's how tribes were created, for survival in a community, and everybody had a job, like the team leader, the medic, your fire guys. So you have that cohesiveness in your tribe when you're in the military, and you come back and you're like, who's my tribe now? Where is my tribe? Well, even as we grow up, and I'm no different than you probably, so I can go back to my hometown and talk to people I grew up with that were my best friends my whole life. The bond is not like it used to be after you come back from combat. I can't explain it. They don't get it. They don't get me. I don't get the things they worry about. It seems random. But in that combat environment and community, I can go see a buddy I deployed with, in Afghanistan in 07, 08, and I see him every 2 years, and within the first 10 minutes, it's like it's like I've never left this guy. I mean, the bond is there, it's back, it's hard to leave. It's even hard to go and see him, because it brings back so many memories of traumatic incidents, and you're overcome with emotion initially, but then it's like, I don't want to leave this guy.
Tribal societies have been exerting almost a gravitational pull on Westerners for hundreds of years. Things are changing, and the reason lies deep for our evolutionary past as a communal species to adapt to this type of culture. The most recent example of that attraction is combat veterans who come to find themselves missing the incredibly intimate bonds of platoon life. The loss of a shared bonding experience and closeness that comes to an end of a deployment may explain the high rates of post-traumatic stress disorder and post-service displacement suffered by military veterans today.
I was a Vietnam veteran, huh?
Yes, he was. Loves talking about it. He didn't stay in, but he loves talking about it. He loves going to any kind of military events, any kind of, he loves seeing the formation. He loves seeing the marching. He came to my graduations and stuff. They came down to Texas after I graduated from PLDC active duty, and when I was at Fort Hood, and just, he loves reminiscing and being that part of it. And one of the ironic things was his MOS was communication, and I saw an old picture of him in this switchboard that he was sitting by when he was over Vietnam. And I did communication when I first signed up. Not on purpose, not because he did, but the switchboard that he trained with, we learned the same, we used the same thing, we learned on the same piece of equipment years later. So it was fun to say, Dad, guess what?
Well, one of those things I've heard today and been over discussion over my project is bridging this gap between the Vietnam, Korean War veterans and the Iraq, Afghanistan. Where do you see the gap right now? And what do we do to resolve that?
Have events that bring them out to be a part of, to just get to talk to them, to get to, I don't know.
Now I'm going to have the opportunity and honor to speak with Gold Star mother, Bev Russell. Bev is the mother of Lance Corporal and Marine Josh Davis, who was killed in action May 7th of 2010 in Iraq.
He knew he was going to Afghanistan. So he called me that night.
Hello?
And I kind of knew that was going to be the last time I ever talked to him.
Over the course of doing this project, I have spoke to many mothers whom have lost their children in combat or to suicide. It's a very difficult place to try to find yourself in, and trying to put yourself into that person's shoes respectively, so you can understand their feelings and perspectives. Many of us in a loss like this find ways to connect to the lost and insert ourselves into the interactions and choices that control the helplessness that we cannot protect nor change the outcome. Even though I have masked my emotions as though desensitized, I have a difficult time not elating to those distant and cascading thoughts and memories as she stares into the dust-collected memorial wall at what has now been termed the war wall. I also wonder how many people from the community has checked in on her in this disconnected age. It gives me hope to know that the Titan team is outside right now on track and supporting some of that offset, With using veteran volunteers to give the efforts back, this is a perfect program. And following a loss like Miss Russell has, we will continuously honor those like Lance Corporal Joshua Davis who have made the ultimate sacrifice.
It was May 7th. It was Friday. I had just gotten home from work, and I'd let the dogs out, and turned around, and there was a knock at my door. And it was 2 Marines, and I just knew something had happened. And that's when I heard that he had been shot down by the Taliban. It was like, it's not real, you know? It's like, really, this is not happening. And then of course everybody's calling you, and Facebook, you know. Everyone was on that, and it's just like, wow, this is, I don't know how to really explain it. It's just like, this can't be happening, but yet it is.
Go right here on these seams and be good. Come back after Thanksgiving or second week of Thanksgiving.
I had the opportunity to stop and speak with one of the volunteers, Ton, from the Iowa National Guard, who has came out to volunteer his time with the backyard cleanup and the Titan Project.
I have a couple friends that are involved with the Titan Project. Also, I know Tim, Colonel Sulzner, through work, and I saw some pictures from last event that they were working on the yard, and I realized that it was something that's near and dear to my heart too. I try to help out veterans as much as I can. Understand that there's really a gap, in terms of a support system. So I think this is rewarding, something that a different way you can give back, not just to the veteran, but the families themselves. So it was a calling. I decided I wanted to be part of it, and end of the day, put in the hard work with your fellow veterans, and it feels good.
I was just amazed at how they was able to clean up my yard last month, tearing down that shed. Because when Alex came here, she's like, oh, we can get this done one day. And I'm like, no way. She goes, yeah, we can. She goes, we'll get a crew of people. Well, then she came to my door, and I seen all the cars up and down the street and all these people. And I was like, wow. And with just in a few hours, they had that shed torn down. They had it all hauled away. They had the trees cut down. They cleaned out the gutters. And I was like, wow. I even called my friend Connie down the street, and her and her son Nicholas came up, and they were just like, wow, this is great,
And the members of the Titan Project are taking care of one another's necessities unknowingly. And truly, the individuals are working to be members of the overall community by promoting their own love, commitment, and with no other purpose than other to belong to the tribe. Sometimes feeding souls with good chemicals of wisdom, or perhaps a good joke, can be just as valuable as a warm blanket on a cold night. And as much as we wish we cannot bring Bev's son back, but we can certainly honor him for his service and sacrifice. And we can be a good tribe member by helping her in times of struggle. We may have many calendar dates set aside for monetary showmanship and consumption and divide, but honestly, the best gift you can give is love and perspective. And now I'm going to have an opportunity to get a more in-depth conversation with some of the Titan Project members about their perspectives on what's causing the climbing rate of veteran suicide.
You know, it's kind of funny because we've reached out through VA, through the VSOs. We have briefed all those folks, and it just seems like it always falls on deaf ears. And like that's one of the biggest struggles and that we have is, we briefed the VSOs, and there's 99 plus here in the state, and they were all in a room, and we briefed them all, and we hear crickets. It's really frustrating because those are the people that are being paid to help veterans, and they're not doing their job.
It is majorly frustrating that we are waiting on the VA officials to fix the suicide issue when it's clearly outside of their ability to stop what they cannot understand. According to a Washington Post report made in April of 2019, 19 suicides that have occurred on the VA property between October 2017 and November 2018, and another 260 reported attempts.
I'm here with Mike and Tim, who kind of run the show, and it's always something new, and the nice thing is that when you're doing this roofing thing, you kind of lose sight of why we're doing it, because we're so focused on the production and customer service and the actual, running a business, that then when you get a weekend to go help out a survivor or a Gold Star mom, or even, just get to go hang out with the guys, it's good to kind of come back and remember why you're putting in all these hours.
You see, military values and structure are very tribe-like. And what we can learn from tribal societies about loyalty, commitment, and internal human quest for meaning is beyond profound and much more attractive than the current individualism and consumption of each other.
Self-worth, belonging, it's more, I wouldn't say, for me, it's not really about actually, to be honest, helping the person. It's about reconnecting with and meeting new people that kind of have gone through some of the same things I have and have similar experiences. So,
in tribal communities, giving is an expectation of all individuals as a means of sharing for the overall tribe's survival. We are all stewards of the world and should not hold status or materialism in between the individuals and the tribe. We should not hold anyone in contempt just because you assume that you may have an economic or social upper hand. Giving must always be pure of heart with no need of repayment.
We did the flag for the Gold Star father down in Winterset, who his flagpole got taken out by a storm, and he was also a Vietnam vet. And when we got down there and talked to Jim, he's just a super nice guy, but he's on oxygen and he can't really move, and he's got Agent Orange problems and all kinds of issues, that on top of a guy that lost his son in Iraq, was a Cav trooper, and at the bottom of that flagpole was his son's name, Michael, and the date that he was killed. So it was a big deal for him. Like, whew. So, like, every morning he would go out there and put the flag up. So when his flag got removed, flag pulled down, and it was the 3rd of July. I said, dude, we got to get down there. It's the 4th of July tomorrow. So we bought a flagpole, concrete, we dug it up, we were able to tap the brick out, dig it out, put a new flagpole in, set the brick, and got a nice photo with him, and dude, he's just bawling. And then he's telling us stories, and the guy's got 2 Purple Hearts from Vietnam, and the second one he got because when he got shot and wounded, they sent him to the rear. We're gonna send him home, or back to Germany or someplace to refit. He went AWOL, went back to his unit, found them, and got wounded again. He wasn't even supposed to be there. And I'm like, this guy's making this shit up. So we Googled and did some research, and he's fucking telling the truth, man. And I'm like, you can't make that. So I'm meeting this character who I think is unreal, right? Just out of coincidence, but I take 2 Iraq veterans with me to do this, who served in the same areas in the same time frame as his son. Like I said, it's just a tiny bit of service that's all come from, I would call it a traumatic experience that we had when we lost, Malcolm Baribar, and we've talked the suicide thing forever. There's no answer, we can't pinpoint it. All I do know is the effects that had. So many people devastated. I've lost soldiers in combat, and it's one of the worst things you can ever experience. never goes away. To lose a soldier to suicide, a whole nother matter. It shakes the core of who you are. I presented the flag to his wife. It was the heaviest thing I've ever carried, right? So, I mean, the lasting scars of that, I never want it to happen again, to anyone. And it continues to happen. And we can't fix everything, but through the Titan project and Titan 2.6 and the things that we're doing, we're trying to fix what we can here in the state of Iowa and in our communities.
I couldn't tell you what the solution is or what the answer is. I think as a society, we're weaker. I mean, I wasn't alive 40 years, 50 years ago, but I think as a society, we're weaker. I think media plays a big part in that. And I think, you know, we've gone away from, I don't want to say like being a man, but we've gone away from really just, it's hard for me to talk about because there's so many people that really struggle and have real issues. But I feel like those people are getting fucked over, to be honest, by all these other people that are just taking advantage of the system and, you know, want people to feel sorry for them. They want the attention, and that's what it's really about for them, you know. A lot of those people have never even deployed to a combat zone, you know, and maybe they do have real issues, but I really think a lot of the issues out there aren't even from the military. Like myself, they're from things that when you're growing up, you go through, you know, everyone goes through different stuff. And then just because you join the military, now the government should pay for everything for you, I think that's fucking bullshit. I don't know what the answer is.
You see, nobody truly knows what the answer is. What we seek may not be achievable without some sort of apocalyptic scenario forcing us all into a tribal situation to survive. See, many warfighters I know have expressed their declaration to not assimilate to societal norms and often beg to return to war. Long before I began filming this series, I created a crisis chart and understood that before beginning this project, I must be particular in my intentions in order to avoid opening the arteries, causing a toxic bleed in the developmental veteran subculture.
And it's not just the suicide, you know, it goes so deep into everything, you know. People I've deployed with that get money every month from the government for back problems that are in the gym doing squats. You know, like, it's just become, easy's not the right word, but it's just become where even I've been told, hey, what's your rating? You should go get a rating. I'm like, well, I don't have anything wrong with me. I don't have any aches or pains. I'm fine. Well, you should really go get a rating because you could go get it. And I think that's where, for me personally, it's like everything's backwards to me. It's like we should all be really focusing on those that really do have issues and trying to come up with solutions for those people.
We have all heard arguments and various negative stamps left behind by medalists and desktop heroes. We have heard some of those negative dialogues from fraudulent disability claims, weakness, and cowardness.
If you look at like World War II, right? The PTSD rate and the suicide rate after that was, you know, I think it was somewhere, you know, like less than 10%. And Vietnam was a little bit more. And now, you know, it's somewhere in that 50% range is what they say, even though it's like less than 10% actual combat. So I think that the PTSD is the wrong word to use. It's not post-traumatic stress. It's separation anxiety.
Mike is not saying that there's no such thing as PTSD, but he is saying that there is many misdiagnoses and cracks in the evaluation system, and this is creating an entitled mentality and corruption in the core values. Many combat veterans dealing with PTS, combat trauma, and grief don't really care much for the term PTSD, but over time have accepted the explanation of their diagnosis and uncontrollable anxieties. Many of these combat veterans are in aggressive recovery programs, fall off the mat from time to time, and rarely seek any increase in their claims during the remainder of their lives. This is usually due to pride and dignity, and for many of these particular veterans, they oftentimes have serious health issues that sometimes lead to death and suicide. However, there are many more that have not experienced the horrors and terrors of up-tempo combat theater, but yet are having serious integration issues and are seeking VA assistance due to their suicidal ideations and depression. Because of cultural dependency, the former service members are returning home and finding no other way out besides a smoking gun. Most of these veterans get into PTSD programs and pharmaceutical treatments without ever having to cite an incident relating to a deployment or a sexual trauma while in service. And not all veterans fit into this category, but this is to be expected, the same as welfare and disability frauds happening on both civilian and veteran communities. Labeling is creating its own stigmas, and it needs to stop.
When you look at the demographics, the military consists of people that come primarily from a broken home, lower to middle income, and they've never had that family support group.
Truly, even if you aren't in combat, when you deploy with a unit, you become like a family with your brothers and sisters, especially in your squad and your platoon. And then when we come back, a lot of us don't have a big family or that connection like others do. And to come back and lose all that, it can be stressful. You know, you don't have any guidance.
And they don't know how to cope with that. And there's no support group set up to help them because the, American Legion and stuff like that does a horrible job of reaching out to our generation of veterans. Maybe this is more than just, it happens to me and not just them, and until you really look into that, you don't, or until it happens to you, like this is what's driving you to do it, to do this. It's the same thing, and that drives us because we realize that the system is not there, and what they say fixes it doesn't fix it.
Coming back together and really trying to keep it away from just drinking, coming together, doing things productive where you're around like-minded people, and you take those real leaders and they can show us, how to continue after the military and be successful.
And if you have those connections and if you have that group who you feel a part of, then I think you're less likely to go down that road. You aren't going to fix them all, right? But I think it's letting them know that there's an option out there. And when they come home from a deployment like that, we also think that their sense of purpose is gone, right? And so our thing with the veterans that we have come help us with the backyard crashes and stuff like that, it's not about, hey, can we help you? It's about, hey, come help us. And so you are giving them that sense of purpose, and we think that is really part of the solution.
It's, I think it's seamless now, but it's difficult because, I'm still in the mindset of looking forward and trying to prepare for combat daily, yet dealing with all the baggage, I guess you would call it, that I've carried and we all carry forward with us, that you have to try to deal with, but still, so we come up, we compartmentalize a lot of stuff. And I think what I see on the civilian side and meeting people that have deployed and have had combat experience and come back and struggle to fit in and are looking for the tribe, which is what we try to do at Titan, both at the Titan Project and Titan Roofing Exterior, is to constantly build a tribe so people have a way to survive, protect each other, to share experiences, and to talk about things that are bothering them. And maybe somebody, well, we know, you and I could sit down and talk for hours and share experiences, and you could say, hey, have you tried this or have you tried that? But and through all of that, with all of this that we've done, we see effects and results on how people are seeing positive effects out of joining a group, doing something outside, or helping another individual like the Gold Star Mother. It's producing an energy and environment where people want more of it.
And as Struggle Beyond the Decades continues to move into another season for crisis resolve on veteran suicide, we respond to the executive order on the national roadmap to empower veterans to end veteran suicide. This is a call to action upon their own, and by the authority invested by the President of the United States. His purpose states that on average 20 service member and veterans die of suicide each day. As a nation, we must do better fulfilling our sole obligation to care for those whom have served our country. So therefore, there is a call to action to improve the quality of life of our nation's veterans. many of whom have risked their own lives to protect our freedoms while deployed multiple times to areas of prolonged conflict. Answering this call to action requires aspirational, innovative, and hands-on-the-deck approach to public health. This is not government as usual. It has been proven that the federal government cannot alone achieve effectiveness or long-lasting reductions in the veteran suicide rate. To reduce the veteran suicide rate, the federal government must work side by side with the partners from state, local, territorial, and tribal government, as well as private and nonprofit entities, to provide our veterans with the services they need. At this time, the federal government must advance the understanding of the underlying causal factors of veteran suicide. Our collective efforts must begin with common understanding that suicide is preventable and prevention requires more than intention than just at the point of crisis. The federal government, academia, employers, members of faith-based communities, nonprofit organizations, first responders, and the veteran community must all work together to foster cultures in which veterans and their families can thrive in. So as relief efforts continue, I will forge forward into another season of Struggle Beyond the Decade. On the next season of Struggle Beyond the Decade.
I would say to people that have been caught up in the system and the VA hasn't really been serving them and they've kind of fallen through the cracks and they're not getting the therapy and the help that they need, to go outside of their box a little bit and to let their barriers down and to be open to receive something different than they've ever experienced before. You don't have to be doped up on pain pills. You don't have to buy into a diagnosis or a disorder that you've been fed. You are capable of healing with the right tools and the right people to facilitate that, and the help is out there. Just be open to receive it. And there's a lot of do-gooders right now in the world. We're one of many, and you travel around documenting all of this stuff. There's a lot of people in the world right now trying to create change, and I would say just if what you're doing is not working, then start seeking out
and love yourself enough to find the tools to do something different and feel better, because you don't have to suffer.